People occasionally have been asking in the last week, why is Stop the War organising in support of the Egyptian people? Well, one of the reasons is because we were founded to oppose the war on terror. And without the corrupt puppet regime of Mubarak and those like him in the Middle East, there could have been no war on terror. And when they are overthrown, there will be no war on terror. Our struggle in support of the Egyptian people's struggle, is directed against the whole system of imperialism and neo-colonialism in the Middle East. And so it's an honour now to invite to speak to you one of the great anti-imperialist campaigners of the last 40 years. Please welcome Tariq Ali.
For 30 years, the West has been backing dictatorships in Egypt. For 30 years, they have been telling us that all is well in Egypt, that this is a moderate regime. This was, and remains still now, about to be overthrown, we hope, a brutal dictatorship kept in power by the Egyptian military. Don't forget that. Without military support internally, Mubarak could not have stayed in power. And the fact that the military itself is now divided, with the generals scurrying to Washington to get orders, but lots of junior officers and soldiers fraternizing with the people, that was the decisive event of this mass uprising, when the soldiers began to fraternize with the people. We have seen it before in parts of Europe, in other parts of the world. We saw it in Iran in 1977 when the army refused to open fire on demonstrators trying to topple the Shah. So what happens over the next weeks is going to be determined to a certain extent on how divided and how split this army is. Have no doubt, what the United States would like to do in Egypt is to replace Mubarak with a lesser-known torturer, Suleiman. But we know Suleiman. We know him well. We know who he is. We know what he has done since the so-called war on terror began. We know that he's in and out of London and Washington, talking to the intelligence agencies, helping them out, torturing people that they are a bit shy to torture in this country or the United States or in Guantanamo. It's Suleiman, backed by Mubarak and the generals who made Egypt into a torture camp, where prisoners gathered from all over the world, leaving aside the Egyptian dissidents themselves, were tortured. So the message of the comrades, the brothers and sisters in Tahrir Square is very clear. No to Mubarak, but no also to Suleiman. We want this entire regime to go, and we want the secret state through which Mubarak has ruled, backed by the West. This secret state has to be dismantled, and the people are already beginning to do it. Because when you read in the newspapers, pro-Mubarak supporters in a country where the security forces number 2 to 3 million, and are told to take off their uniforms and go into Tahrir Square and brutalize the courageous Egyptians who have gone there. They are not people. They are mercenaries in the pay of the Mubarak dictatorship. This is an isolated regime, isolated by its people, isolated now in the Arab world at large, but kept going by the power that resides there and its satraps, its agents in the European Union. It is the West who has kept this regime going. And who are the leaders? The Americans are now saying, yes, yes, it's awful. Well, thank you very much. It required millions of people on the streets. It required 300 deaths and 5,000 injured people to make you realize. But there's one rogue who still won't understand what's happening in the Middle East. Tony Blair. Mubarak is a force for good. Well, we know what Tony Blair's idea of good and evil is. We know that 200 people dead in Egypt are small beer because he supported the killing of nearly 1 million people in Iraq, so 200 compared to that is nothing. These are the politicians of the West, shameless, corrupt, visionless, incapable of doing anything when they see a genuine mass uprising, but deliberately trying to create fake uprisings in those parts of the world where the leaders don't do their bidding. And one more thing. Ask yourselves, how is it that the Arab street came alive? The much mocked, the much condemned Arab street, where American newspaper columnists like Friedman used to say and boast, we took Iraq. Where was the Arab street? And have no doubt that what is happening in Egypt today is also a response to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and the crushing of Palestine. Tired, angry, defeated for a period, demoralized, the Arab nation, not just the Egyptian people, the Arab nation is awakening. Let us not forget the courageous young people on the streets of Tunis who sparked off this uprising. Let us salute. And do you know that when the Tunis uprising was taking place, Nicolas Sarkozy and his defense minister offered to send French paratroopers in to defend their favorite dictator. Well, why didn't they? Because before they could organize it, he was on a plane out. And where was he on a plane out to? To Saudi Arabia, another democracy. To Saudi Arabia, where he can access his bank accounts very quickly because all the banks are there in Riyadh, so no problem. So Mubarak has a choice. Where do you want to go, Hosni Mubarak? Texas is possible, but Saudi Arabia might be safer for another few years. It will fall, but it will take another decade to get rid of that corrupt and criminal regime, which has backed every Western war since it was founded. It will come, the revolution in Saudi Arabia, have no doubt about it. And the Western politicians who are now realizing that Mubarak is a dictator, have they forgotten Yemen? Where for the last 3 weeks there have been demonstrations every single day against a dictator who uses the fictitious presence of Al-Qaeda to strengthen himself and his dictatorship. He's now torturing and he's scared. And do you know what he said? Please let me stay in power for another few years and I promise you my son won't succeed me. That is the democracy the Americans and their European puppets have been backing in the Yemen. That is what they've been doing in Egypt. But let them look. Listen to the bells of Tunis. Listen to the bells and the noises and the chants of Cairo. They are tolling for you. They are tolling for all the regimes that backed all this. And one mustn't forget, in this time of joy and Arab Renaissance, the fate of our Palestinian brothers and sisters for whom we've been fighting now for many years as well. Everything has been exposed. The capitulation of the so-called leaders of the Palestinians, going on their knees before the Israelis and the Americans and saying, here we are, take us, we're yours. That is why The one solidarity demonstration that was crushed in the Arab world was in Ramallah. Crushed by Abbas's men, embarrassed as to what is going to happen in the Arab world after Mubarak goes. And go he will, because of one thing you can be assured, that this mass movement that has arisen might have its ups and its downs. It won't all be an easy path. But one of the things the post-Mubarak government will have to do is to end the siege of Gaza. Our solidarity is extremely important. All we are being asked to do is demonstrate, to gather in larger and larger numbers, to show our solidarity. In Egypt, people are dying. In Jordan, they are being brutalized. In Yemen, they are being threatened. In Algeria, they are being arrested in their hundreds. And they have lost, as Judith said, who spoke before me, they have lost in Egypt, as they did in Tunis, the fear of death. And when a people loses the fear of death, then no power in the world can defeat them. Solidarity with the people, the masses of Egypt. Solidarity with the people of Jordan. Solidarity with the people of Algeria, of the Yemen, of Tunis. Solidarity with the Arab nation that has come alive again.